Ah yes, the Bee Movie. A truly intellectual film, a beacon of cerebral capacity, and a film that so delicately treads the fine line of how much bestiality you can fit into a children's cartoon and still be rated PG. Haha. Let's cut to the chase. I know what you're thinking. The Bee Movie is actually a subtle ode to humanity's unsustainable and irresponsible use of nature. And you know what? You'd be wrong. Plain wrong, you brain-dead vegetable. In fact, the Bee Movie, in its entirety, is nothing more than the cartoon expression of a bee's horniness for humans. So we ask the question, was this movie really about justice for bees? Or is Barry B. Benson just horny for humans? We are first introduced to our protagonist, one naive young Barry B. Benson, on the day of his graduation.
Yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. Ooh, black and yellow. Yeah, let's shake it up a little.
And to the untrained eye, whilst this may seem like a relatively innocuous beginning, those with a fine eye for detail like myself will see that we are dealing with a bee of the mentally handicapped variety, with Barry using honey as all three of gel, mouthwash and deodorant.
Coming!
Whilst this may go a long way in explaining Barry's future behaviour, and a long way in sectioning him under the 1983 Mental Health Act, unfortunately this British jurisdiction does not extend to anthropomorphic American cartoon bees. So for now, we're just going to have to keep it in the back of our minds that Barry is mentally deficient. Either way, that's a negative point for justice to bees, because how the fuck is Barry meant to be expected to deliver justice when he can't even decipher between what's meant to clean his balls and what's meant to clean his teeth? After catching up with his friend Adam Flayman, Barry then makes his way to his graduation ceremony, passing through the pretty fucking irresponsible road layout and celebrating with what I can only imagine to be some satanic handshake. Either that, or they were just doing this really shit impression of Moist Critical. Woo! Yeah, baby! This might be controversial, but imitation of human culture, definitely 1 point for being horny for humans. Immediately after graduating, Barry and Adam are taken on an amusement park tour ride through their hive, just to look at what jobs they're going to be subject to for the remaining 10 days of their pitiful and shit existence.
You'll stay in the job that you pick for the rest of your life.
Whilst this was received better by Barry's rabid counterpart than by Barry himself, it was fortunately interlaced with a large dose of incestual sex jokes.
That girl was hot.
She's my cousin.
She is?
Yes, we're all cousins.
Right, you're right.
And whilst blue-eyed Barry Benson is a beaming beacon for bee incest in this Bee Movie, his distaste at this thought shows a detachment for bee intercourse. 1 point for being horny for humans. And whilst Flame was almost figuratively blown away by the idea of working for the man for the rest of his life,
That blew my mind!
Barry just cannot let it go and remains sullen until he sees... Okay, hold on. I guess honey is just used for fucking everything? Christ, if this is such a miracle property, why don't they have more advanced civilizations than people wearing sticks on their head and taking up honey drips from bowls? Why aren't humans just under the rule of the bee lords? Why aren't we slaves to the bee man? Anyway, bringing this back on track, Barry's forlorn look is wiped away from his face when he sees the pollen jocks, as he imagines what their life is like outside the hive. In this moment of daydreaming, Barry and Flamin get covered in the pollen jocks' excess pollen, with Barry using this as an excuse to go and chat up the ladies. Seemingly, Barry has forgotten about being previously repulsed by interfamilial coitus and proceeds to use the power and status that the pollen bestows to him to chat up distant cousins. Nice power dynamic abuse, you filthy creep. Anyway, -1 for being horny for humans, as he's now horny for his cousin. Things progress with the real pollen jocks seeing this and then challenging Barry to come out on a flight with them tomorrow outside of the hive.
You think, Buzzy boy? Are you bee enough?
Barry mulls us over. And when faced with his own mortality in the job line by some eccentric bee auctioneer, decides to take up the offer of hitting the sunflowers with the jocks he met the previous day. And after a questionably inspirational speech from some bee ward general,
As you all know, bees cannot fly.
Barry and the bee jocks take to the skies. And after getting a crash course in pollination, Barry and the jocks are drawn to some flying flowers, aka tennis balls, which Barry then gets stuck to. And in the midst of Barry being thrown around like keys at a swingers party, we're first introduced to Vanessa, Barry's love interest, who throughout the movie speaks to Barry at a normal level, but for some reason here, fails to hear him screaming at the top of his lungs.
What is this?
For Christ's sake, Ken hears a bee cough from 10 meters away.
Huh? No!
The only logical explanation here is that Vanessa, completely overwhelmed by Barry's raw dog sexual energy, is playing hard to get. 1 point for being horny for humans. Anyway, the flying flower tennis game continues, and Barry is sent screaming skywards only to be sucked into a car's engine. And it's first here where we see Barry's nonchalant attitude and complete disdain for other bugs' life.
Ew, gross.
Surely this is the same as seeing a human frozen to death. Why is Barry so undisturbed by this? Not caring about another insect's life, -1 for justice for bees. Things progress quickly, and Barry finds himself in an all-out battle with the humans in the car. And after escaping through the sunroof, is gunned down by a water droplet as if he was a Chinese spy balloon flying over South Carolina. And just like Disney magic, Barry manages to bounce himself onto the windowsill of Vanessa's apartment. And if cosmic attraction is anything to judge horniness by, which my ex-girlfriend who left me for another man would agree with, then that's 1 point for being horny for humans. Strangely enough, after being pulled into the flat by divine intervention, Barry then makes the decision to leave, ramming himself into the window like he's Will Smith trying to break down the door of Jada's cuckoldry.
That is diabolical.
Now, without the ability to leave, Barry is forced to listen to Ken's incredible impressions.
Kinda stuff.
And seeing this as a final straw, Barry decides to end his life by flying into a light bulb which he's confused with the sun.
Oh, there's the sun. Maybe that's a way out. I don't remember the sun having a big 75 on it.
After this failed attempt on his own life, Barry falls into some guac, rear-ending the humans. And indecently exposing himself, that's 1 point for being horny for humans. After almost entering back-end bearing into a human's mouth, Ken brings it to the other person's attention. Instead of trying to capture the bee, starts to show him his outfit.
These are winter boots.
And after failing to impress Barry by this, turns to violence. Sensing the danger, Vanessa comes running out and places Barry in a glass, where she equates the worth of her long-term boyfriend's life to that of a bee.
Why does his life have any less value than yours?
Out of sheer fury, Vanessa then proceeds to rip in half Jeff's brochure, almost bringing the poor man to tears. After this, Vanessa places Barry back outside on the windowsill, all whilst giving him the come-to-bed eyes. 5 fucking points for Gryffindor, look at that. She wants that bee and you cannot tell me otherwise.
There you go, little guy.
Anyway, after mulling it over, Barry now feels so indebted to Vanessa that he thinks he has to go and break the 23 million long agreement that humans shouldn't speak to bees.
She saved my life. I gotta say something. All right, here goes.
Surely this happened before, right? And if not, what is the first thing he's going to say to Vanessa to break this million-old law?
You like jazz?
No, just kidding. Even worse than that.
Hi.
See, this is the exact type of message that I would send to girls on Tinder. Barry knows what's up. He's a straight killer. 1 point for being horny for humans. In all honesty, Vanessa's response to this was probably the most normal thing seen throughout the entirety of the movie.
Oh, that was a little weird.
If it were me, there'd be much more than just stabbing my hand with a fork. There'd be severed limbs all over my kitchen floor, blood everywhere, bees giving me CPR, and Ken crying over his brochure as he holds my lifeless body.
When will this nightmare end?
I certainly wouldn't be offering the bee coffee. Also, avoiding the fact that Barry is happy to drink this mystery liquid, the amount of time he's spending with it now is approaching a full day. This is almost 2.5 years in his life. And to spend that much time with someone and potentially be poisoned by some unknown liquid must mean something. 1 point for Barry being horny for humans. In fact, Vanessa mentioned something which might go a long way in explaining why Barry's acting like this.
My only interest is flowers.
Our new queen was just elected with that same campaign slogan.
And if we're being pedantic here, male bees' only purpose is to procreate with a queen. So maybe due to Barry's mental capacity, he's confused Vanessa with another queen. I mean, look at the way he looks at her. And whilst I'm not sure how many points I can dedicate to my own scoring system, I'm going to play it safe and go with 1. Saying this, I've got to hand it to Barry here. It seems like he does want to do his bit for the hive.
I want to do my part for the hive, but I can't do it the way they want.
So credit where credit's due, 1 point for justice for bees. Day 3 begins and Barry is now close to a decade older than he was at the start of the film. And we find him walking through a hive and talking to Flamin about his escapades. And although Flamin tries to convince him to come back to the hive and pick out a job, Barry reveals that he's met someone, and rather than it being the fetishized spider kind,
You know, I'm not attracted to the spiders. I know that everyone else is like the hottest thing with the 8 legs and all.
that instead,
She's, human.
understandably, Mr. Flamin is infuriated, making a pretty strong point that humans attack their homes and murder them frequently. So by talking about Vanessa as a love interest, It's pretty clear that Barry's motivations are not laid in the foundations of bee justice and instead in bee horniness. 1 point for being horny for humans. Fortunately, Barry eventually manages to subdue Flamen by shoving a crumb of food in its mouth.
This is over!
Eat this.
This is not over!
Which incidentally makes a pretty good meme.
This is over!
Eat this.
This is not over!
Anyway, Barry's ramblings about Vanessa continue, becoming extremely Shakespeare-esque in their delivery.
Who can deny the heart that is yearning?
That is until he's mobbed into thinking as part of the hive mind.
Thinking bee!
Thinking bee.
Thinking bee!
After this, we found out that Barry has been moping around for 3 whole days.
Barry, how much longer is this going to go on? It's been 3 days.
That's another decade. Barry is now 20 years older than the start of the film. He's 50. Why is he not aged? He obviously doesn't care about the bees in their world. -1 point for justice for bees. Barry then escapes his beration from his parents by drowning himself in his honey swimming pool and imagining a life with Vanessa, which is arguably the most poignant and horny part of the movie.
You coming?
10 points at least. You can argue in the comment section below. But you know what's fucking weird about this hallucination? If it's his daydream, why would he imagine Vanessa's lifeless corpse being blown to smithereens? Serves you right that you drowned. After this violently sexual hallucination, Barry gets out of the pool and makes his way over to Vanessa, where they go on a stroll through the supermarket together. And although Barry makes his intentions crystal clear,
You work through it like any emotion. Anger, jealousy, lust.
yeah, you know what you're doing. It's here when Vanessa starts to show her true emotions for Barry, as after a generous passerby bats Barry off her shoulder, she responds not only by having a go at the man, but also by physically assaulting him. And I've actually started a petition to get Vanessa sent to jail, so if you guys want to check the link in the description to get it signed, then we can get her locked away for good. Anyway, this is a point in the movie that the plot starts to pivot, and Barry is finally made aware of humans' consumption of honey. After this revelation, he quickly abandons Vanessa just to pursue the perpetrators of this honey war crime. And this change in the plot based purely on interspecies love interests, as much as it pains me, is clearly in favour of Barry wanting justice for bees. To begin this plot subversion, Barry first duels the man who had previously swatted the living shit out of him to get information about where the honey's coming from. Barry humiliates the man 800,000 times heavier than him and hops on a truck heading to honey farms, where once again, Barry's value for insect life is thrown completely into question. First, Barry is horrified of all the dead insects around him, but then he's seemingly unfazed by the dead grasshopper stuck next to him.
What about you?
He really is dead.
All right.
In fact, this is the first time in the movie they were actually made aware that other bugs are sentient and can talk. So it might just be the case that Barry's a psychopath, and maybe that's just the nature you need to deliver the swift hand of justice for bees. Anyway, this psychopathic nature is made pretty fucking obvious when Barry rejoices the insect next to him gets flung off the truck, presumably to its gruesome death.
Aha!
Is Barry actually the villain in this movie? Is Vanessa just attracted to bad boys? Maybe she is. 1 point for horniness. There you go, Barry. Barry eventually makes it to honey farms, only to find bees being farmed en masse and worshipping fake queens. Anyway, Barry does seem fairly put off by the fact that thousands of his cousins that he either does or doesn't want to have sex with are being gassed and used for their honey. Findings which he eventually takes back to his family using a 007 spy camera. You know where this is going. Anyway, when back home, Barry desperately tries to convince his parents of the humans' wrongdoings, only to be outed by Flamen for wanting to fuck Vanessa.
And they make out!
With Barry both failing to deny that he has a human girlfriend and failing to deny that he doesn't want to make out with Vanessa. All huge points for being horny for humans. Saying this, Barry does manage to redeem himself in the next act, as Barry sets out to sue the human race for their honey production. And as you'll see, this is going to be huge points for bee justice. And whilst I would have done a second part in this video, all the files on my computer got corrupted and I had to restart all this bullshit from I had to redo all this bullshit from the start. So you're just going to have to like, subscribe and come back again. See you guys next time. Peace out.